welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the Collider weekly podcast for all things animation, including reviews and interviews, coming to you from a hobby shop in Japan. I'll be your co-host, Sean Paul Ellis. Joining me from the Gunpla Battle World Championship Tournament, my co-host, Dave Trumbore. David, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, bud, other than being real sweaty from this tournament here. Do you say tournament or tournament? I don't know how to say it properly.
I think I say tournament.
I feel like no matter how I say it, I get made fun of, and I'm always like real anxious and nervous about it, so I focus on that instead of the actual fighting itself, and it gets me through.
I will say probably I want to say tournament, but when I get tired and I say it quickly, I'm probably like tournament.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the Pennsylvania word. That's the Pennsylvania way to say it, which is a far cry from the Tokyo Gunpla battle scene. But here we are.
Absolutely. Well, joining us today, Dave, we've got a special guest. Yeah. Joining us from a pile of Gundam model box kits. Returning, it is our friend Charlie Visconage. Charlie, welcome back, friend.
What's up, guys?
Nothing much, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Good to be here.
Good to see you. Good to literally see you, both on our Skype cam and hopefully on our Twitch stream here, too, as we work through some tech stuff and figure that out. So thank you for joining us for, guess what? Literally our first video episode for realsies.
Whoa, nice.
Pretendsies. This week is for real, and it's a stream, too, so double, triple fun for you. So
feel free to put me on blast in the comments, guys.
100%. Everybody who's listening right now, feel free to just take shots at all of us.
Yeah, light them up.
And if I've learned anything from Charlie being a guest, this will not be the first time that he says either light me up or don't come at me on Twitter.
I think, I'm just starved.
Fight me on social media.
Yeah, I'm starved for human contact during COVID-19 times. So I think, this time, do tweet at me, bro.
Just any contact is good contact.
Yeah,
whether it's negative
whatever.
or not. Just like, that's how we know that we're loved.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I have a very important question for the both of you. I'm going to start with our guest, Charlie.
Please.
Charlie, we are talking about Gundam Build Fighters today. What is your experience with either model building or Gundam model building, if you have any to speak of?
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you asked. So I've been a Gundam fan since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And like a lot of people, I was exposed to it on Toonami. So there was a time when they had a block that was the original series of Gundam from the 70s for a half an hour, followed by a half an hour of Gundam Wing, followed by Outlaw Star, which was just like an amazing, and certainly informs like all the things I still like to this day. And then, this was sort of the early days of e-commerce, like early 2000s, and I just like begged my parents where I would give them cash so they would use their credit card on these sketchy websites to buy Gundam model kits, which did arrive, thankfully. And so in their house now, I have about 40 kits that I've built and are in boxes still. Most of them are the regular grade. I have 2 perfect grade ones. I have a perfect grade Zaku. In the green one, not the Char red. Yeah. And then I have a perfect grade
Crimson Comet.
Yeah, and then I have a perfect grade RX-78.
Now this was back before they introduced real grade, right? This was back when it was, or even high grade, wasn't it?
I think so. These were pretty big. Like they came in a big old box that's maybe like double the length of a shoebox.
I'm going to ask you a nerdy question. 1/100th or 1/144th?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have to look exactly. I would guess maybe the 1/144th. Next time I'm at home, I really should just grab the Zaku and like bring it to my apartment, which my wife will love.
Just fly it down.
She'll definitely love that as part of our interior decor.
My girlfriend loves her quote unquote Gundam voice, which I won't repeat here, to not put her on blast and to not offend any of our fellow Gundam fans out there, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good Gundam voice.
Yeah. But I love it. And then I was telling you guys before we started recording, I was in Japan in February and early March. And so it's my third visit in like 3 or 4 years. So it's always fun to go there and pop into the very model shops like are shown on this show, where truly it's just...
I gotta ask you, like when I went, it was the only time I went, and I literally booked a hotel by Gundam base, even though it was nowhere near the events and stuff that we were doing. So, long story short, I had to get a second suitcase to fit the Gundam stuff in because it just would not fit in my actual suitcase. So I was like, I guess I'm checking this bag and we'll put these in a suitcase just to take home. And they weren't even that big. It was just 2 of them. I just didn't have the space. Yeah. If you go, definitely pack a second bag for all your Gundam purchases.
And I ended up carting back a bunch of stuff this past trip. So like I got Sean and Evangelion Unit 01. Nice. I got a bunch of Death Stranding memorabilia for myself. Cool. But yeah, it's like you go into these model shops and they're just gorgeous, like beautifully lit. There are cases, with them assembled in these little dioramas. And it really just has a way of making you feel like a kid again and just like, sure, here's my credit card and just, let's take it to the limit, baby.
Just to run it up as far as it goes. Run it until it gets declined, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. When I have to text Chase in the middle of the night and just be like, I meant
just click yes. I approve all of these.
Keep it going.
All 17. Just go ahead.
And I just love walking through. So there's a neighborhood, Akihabara in Tokyo, where there's not only arcades, but there are just skyscrapers, top to bottom, full of different kinds of models and such.
I was overwhelmed by that. It was like a Times Square for nerds, but like even going on like a Tuesday afternoon or whatever, it's just like there's always something going on. And you'd walk into like one store and there'd be like music going, anime going, movie going, like just all kinds of noise at all times. And obviously not in English. So I was just very overwhelmed. Oh yeah. It definitely stuck out like a sore thumb too, but definitely an experience. Yeah. When are we taking Sean?
Well, I wanted to ask you, Dave, what was your experience with models? We know that you brought a couple back, but you've built some models before, right?
My first one ever, Charlie and I have kind of the same introduction to it, having grown up around the same time. So Gundam Wing was pretty much my first like major introduction, even though I had watched the original OG series in the past. But those were the first models that I built. And actually, I think I told this story on the podcast before, but my first one I ever built was a Sandrock model. And it was actually when I was in the hospital, because my mom brought it in and was like, well, you need something to like occupy your time because you're just sitting here watching, hospital TV
Jerry
over
Springer.
and over again. Yeah, pretty much Jerry Springer. It was like rotting my brain. So she was like, well, I'll bring him this model thing for this weird robot show that he likes, and that'll occupy some time. So like 2 hours later, I think I was like done with it because it was a relatively simple Sandrock kit. And she came back with like lunch or whatever and was like, I was hoping that would take you like a couple of days. No. And then I didn't really have the bug from that because it can be a relatively expensive hobby. So it wasn't until years later that, I got back into it. And it helped, like Charlie said, going to Japan because you kind of have to do it there. And that's when I got back into it. And I'm currently back in it right now. So I'm trying to keep that wallet and that bank account in trim fighting shape. So I don't get nuts and buy too many. How about you, though, Sean? Like, I know you have a couple, but I don't know what the extent of your model familiarity, model building prowess is.
I used to be more into painting Dungeons and Dragons figures when I was growing up, and I did a bunch of those.
Made famous by Stranger Things, yeah.
Exactly. I had some model kits that, required me to use an epoxy glue and kind of assemble everything. I was super big into that. My parents thought I was crazy and that I would glue all of my fingers together.
Sure.
Showed them, didn't I?
Yeah, Sean still has like a special keyboard that he uses for his
doing fine. I was actually gifted my first Gundam model from you, Dave, a couple Christmases ago. That was my first Gundam model. I put it together. I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was up in my living room for the longest time. It's now on a bookshelf that's back behind me, but it was a very small,
little guy,
little tiny Gundam guy. And I had him up next to my television, and I had some company over, and they had a young kid who found the Gundam figure and then began to just take it apart.
Perfect.
And I put it back together again, but for some reason, that connection or like the part where like the head would snap into something won't make the connection. I think there's a piece missing that just...
So you're telling me the first Gundam ever that I got you broke is what you're telling me?
That's 100%.
No, that's fine. That's a cool way to say it. That's a cool story way to tell me you broke the thing I got for you. But that's fine.
I paid that child $5 to break that Gundam. I was like, look, we have talked about Gundam Now on this show. This is episode 280. We have talked about Gundam Now 4 times. Episode 144, Robotech versus Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam.
Robotech did
right.
Robotech win that one though?
Don't remember.
I don't think Zeta Gundam would have won out over Robotech.
Yeah, it was probably Robotech.
Yeah, I think Robotech.
Episode 145, immediately after that, Evangelion versus Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. And I was jockeying.
Mad about it.
Oh, that was, if you want to hear a depressing episode for me, just listen to 145. You can hear me, you can actually hear the gears in my brain just grinding to a halt as I get frustrated with Tony Lazzaroni and Dave on this one. And then if you listen to episode 224, we talked about Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. Charlie and Jeff Ray came on that, and we had a chance to chat about that as well.
Just a perfect holiday anime, 6 episodes.
Yep.
Really going to brighten up the holidays. Highly recommend it. Watch it with your kids.
Now that's one I haven't seen War in the Pocket yet, but I just finished up. I watched Unicorn and I watched MS-08 recently.
Ooh. So 08 MS team is good.
MS-08 is really good.
Yeah, MS-08 is great. I'd say for 08 War in the Pocket, it's great because it introduces Chris McKenzie, and I believe our friend Jeff Ray had a lot of thoughts and feelings that are included in that episode about her. So what a great character, right? So, well. These are our thoughts and ideas and opinions about, Gundam and Gundam models. Well, guess what? This actually came over from a listener suggestion. And you've heard us say this multiple times. Any listener suggestion that we have, we are bound by cartoon law and our cartoon lawyers to go and review those actual cartoons. So let's hear from this listener, Jesse, in his own voice about why he loves Gundam Build Fighters so much. So Jesse, take it away.
Hi, Jesse again. I have one more suggestion for you guys. I know you've watched a few Gundam series. I haven't looked at the episodes, but I'm working on the back catalog. But I had one more to throw in. Gundam Build Fighters. It is kind of like a Pokemon series. They build Gundam models and then the models fight. It's ridiculous, but it's way better than it has any right to be. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. All right, take care, guys. Bye.
I love the fact that Jesse mentions and talks about this is Pokemon and Gundam kind of all merged into one. He's not wrong.
Yeah, spoilers. I think they're not wrong.
Not wrong, Jesse. You're 100% right. I actually say there's more to just Pokemon and Gundam with this. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but a lot of you have recommended cartoons over social media or in the comments section. Do you want us to actually review that cartoon? Because we want to do it. You can go to the bio of any of our social media accounts, click the link tree. There's a second button, suggest a cartoon. You can go one step further and call us, 202-681-4406. You can leave a message. If we get that message, our cartoon lawyers have said this, and it is a legally binding contract, and we have no way to be able to get out of it. We have to review that cartoon like we're doing today for Jesse and Gundam Build Fighters. So call, leave your message. It'll be on the podcast. We promise. Well, before we get into Gundam Build Fighters, let's set the table, get a little baseline going here in terms of what's there. So we're going to throw this over to longtime listener and best friend of the show, Bobby Anthem, to talk about our synopsis. So Bobby, take it away.
In a world where Gundam is a very popular TV show, Sei Iori wishes to be just like his father, who was a Gunpla champion years ago. Unfortunately, Sei only has skill in building Gunpla, but once he meets a boy named Reiji, who has the ability to fight with his Gunpla, everything changes. Will they be able to make it to the top just like his father did?
All three of us have decided, now that we're back, Bobby gets to be every single character in this show.
Bobby can be whatever he wants.
Yeah, Bobby can be
Build Fighters. It's Bobby Build Fighters X rediscovered.
Love it.
Yeah.
So let's do a deep dive for us in terms of Gundam Build Fighters. We have only watched episode 1, so we are going to be making all of our discussions and our decisions based on that episode. I know that Dave has watched episode 2. I've actually watched a little bit of episode 2 because I wanted to see if there was a theme song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we'll talk about
good thing you did. Yeah,
glad I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got that cool rap song. Well, as we dig into this, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the LOL. Does this sound like a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western? You betcha. Why? Because we grabbed it right from there and made some artistic changes to it. So we're going to talk about the good, things that we really liked, the bad, things that didn't resonate with us as we watch through and we make our snap decision based on only one episode, and we're going to talk about the LOL, things that made us laugh, whether intentional or unintentional. We want to put all of this inside that warm burrito blanket of understanding that, man, so much time, sweat, energy, tears, and especially money go into making all of these cartoons. And so, again, we're making these decisions and these impressions based off of one episode and one episode only. If you disagree with us, make sure you at Charlie, who is Sweaty in the City on Twitter, and let him know all of your problems. Yep.
From here on out.
He's going to tackle every complaint.
Yeah, complaint department, take a number.
Perfect. It's just like a deli counter. That's all we want.
Yeah, I've got a whole roll of those little tickets.
Perfect. So let's get into the good. Let's talk about the things that we liked about Gundam Build Fighters. And let's start with our guest, Charlie. What was top thing that you're feeling about Build Fighters?
Well, so in this first episode, we're treated immediately to this kind of fight sequence, and it's really fun. And so not knowing anything about the show, I was like, oh, okay, like, cool, we're just getting right into it. But this turns out to be a fantasy from our main character, Sei, when he goes to fire his laser cannon and the Gundam's arm just like pops right off, which having built many of these models myself, have been there before, where it's like, you're like, oh, I think this is fine, because you're just excited and you're sort of rushing through it. And then you're like, oh no, cut too many corners on the plastic model kit. But yeah, I thought it was really, it's fun. It's positive. It definitely made me regret not buying more models when I was in Japan, kind of like we were saying. Like, really wish I would have stocked up. And I did really like, kind of early on, more midway through the episode, when Sei has his first battle and loses. It kind of follows that classic anime trope of like the protagonist getting his butt kicked and then kind of working to get better, which I always love to see, wherever that happens. And the other character who really stood out to me, the overly intense, their regular Mr. Ral, he's really into the mom.
Oh, he's pretty horny for her.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, look, they're both presumably single. Like, they make some references to the dad, but he's either moved on or...
It's very funny that Mr. Rao says to the mom, he calls her Mrs.
Oh, he does.
In the dubbed version. And so there was a part of me...
did you guys watch the dubs? I was curious about that.
Oh, no, sorry.
I watched the
subtitle.
Yeah.
My goof, gang. We watched the subtitle for this first episode. But yeah, he calls her Mrs. and it shows it in terms of the subtitle. And I was like, so where is the dad?
That's a good question.
Be continued.
CBD. TBC even. Yeah.
Yeah. No idea. So yes, Charlie, the regular, Mr. Raw, very, very horny for everything.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. And then, no, I thought that was kind of like, there's a lot to like early on. It's a fun show, I think.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Dave, how are you feeling about the good for GBF?
Again, Rinko Iori, or Iori Rinko, I forget which way she says her name. But, I mean, if you're into that, there's plenty of content out there for you on the internet for more, if you're curious. I don't know.
Really?
I mean, I'm just saying. It's out there.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah. You always got to check. We used to do a Rule 34 check here on the channel. Haven't done it in a while. It's out there.
It's about to get after dark right now. We're immediately after dark right now.
Immediately after dark. On what's ostensibly a kid's show.
Yeah.
Not this show right here, but the show we're talking about. Which I kind of like, though. I do like the premise of it, because this one is less... No, I like the idea that it's not set in like a Gundam universe that you typically think of, right? So it's not planets and colonies having like space combat and warfare and all that kind of stuff. It's literally just about like the kids who are into Gunpla and bringing a battle into that particular world. So
I agree with everything that we've said. One dynamic of this show that I'm a big fan of is that this family is so supportive. And yes. I think sometimes for these cartoons that kind of follow this path or this direction, there might be a conflict between the parents or like an uncle or a mysterious grandfather who shows up who introduces some conflict. In this, it seems like this family is nothing but love. And this is very rewarding to watch Rinko and Sei have this interaction, even from the fact that Rinko says, this is Colonel Rinko off to the '08 supermarket as she greets her son and leaves their hobby shop to run an errand. It's very nice. Some of this seems very sweet. And as we mentioned, this is a kid's cartoon, and it hits a lot of marks in terms of being something that feels wholesome, feels rewarding, doesn't have to introduce some crazy family conflict that then we have to go through like Neon Genesis Evangelion. I feel like this is a supportive, fun family structure. And then you move into these cool aspects where they actually show the conflict on this Gunpla, which I'll be honest with you, don't love the branding on Gunpla. I know it means Gundam plastic models.
Never been
Gunpla?
great.
That was the best that we were able to do.
It's sort of a clumsy portmanteau.
Yeah, it really is. It's very weird. But during that moment when we shift over from the real world into Gunpla, that's when you get to see a lot of the fun fan servicey things about seeing these individual models fight and compete against one another. I love the fact that if you actually beat and destroy a model in Gunpla, it destroys the model in real life.
Which I could understand if some people out there would be like, I don't want to participate in this game because I spent like hours of my life and maybe hundreds of dollars or whatever like on this thing, and I would prefer to not have it immediately destroyed. But I like it in the visual sense of like there's some stakes, there's some loss that you could actually have here unless you win. There's even some attrition if you do win.
Right. And it also seems like there's a little bit of a hint at a larger story or a bigger thing to have happen, especially when Rinko says, I feel like your dad's aura is in this new model that Sei has built.
Yeah.
And again, cool. Where is this dad? Where is this dad?
And you're like, hey, Mom, maybe you just need some grief counseling. Dad's been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just hang out with Raul some more. Let's go get some coffee together.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Without knowing what this relationship is, Raul seems like he's a pretty reliable, nice guy, and Rinko seems to just be kind of hanging out and appreciating the company. So even if we're saying this isn't a sexual relationship, I think it's just nice that these two adults can find company with each other in that direction. After dark. Gosh darn it.
Every time.
I will say, we've talked about this before in terms of properties of this manner, and Jesse kind of brought this up as well, the idea of kind of having this be a Pokemon Gundam. Man, it does not stop with Pokemon and Gundam, because there is a Yu-Gi-Oh reference and style of the actual battle that takes place. There's Pokemon in terms of the collection and wanting to build a collection. It's set in the Gundam universe. Talk about that in a little bit. They also make reference that they're just like, hey, this is kind of like MMA. Sure.
Yeah, that came very out of left field.
Yeah. And then I think that the final piece that they have for this, with a character that gets introduced early and then kind of comes to fruition at the end of episode 1, is sort of the magical girl anime trope, but with a male character instead. And so interesting to kind of see them play a little bit with gender and have fun with that. But still, pretty rewarding. Like, none of it seemed with the Reggie character that it was, crazy or super out of place. Again, kind of a fun hint at, if you continue to watch this, because this show did go for 2 seasons, so there's 50 episodes.
Multiple series after that, yeah.
Right. There's we have Gundam Build Divers, and then Gundam Build Divers Rise. So,
do you think that was just somebody's email at the production company? They're like, sure, whatever, make it the title.
Yeah. There are so many series sequels that it's not just season 2, it's not just season 3. There's just there are so many things that they just add these bizarre little taglines on at the end. Digimon Evolution Try, that's one. The whole series of films that came after that, it's try something else. Try Reunion, try Aftermath, I don't even know.
Try harder to name these better.
I mean, go into Tokyo Ghoul. There's Tokyo Ghoul there's Tokyo Ghoul X or S, I think. A lot of them, they make it really difficult for the Western folks to keep up.
What
going
the
on.
chronology
You're
is.
really into the fandom. Yeah.
Anything else about the good? Charlie, I think you had mentioned a little bit about sort of the animation.
Yeah.
Oh,
What were
yeah.
your thoughts about it?
I was pretty strongly struck by, certainly in that opening space battle, where maybe the majority of the budget for this episode went to. That one struck me as like, oh, this is really slick looking. It did have kind of a Digimon look to it almost. So I really liked it throughout, I thought.
Yeah, I agree there. It's kind of like, I'm jumping the Gunpla. You could definitely tell they put their money into the battle sequences. So the kid stuff was just kind of pretty typical. There wasn't any big jumps there. It was just kind of like your standard animation, pretty stripped down design, and not a whole lot going on until they actually got to the Gunpla stuff. Though I will say I really liked all the attention made to the kits in the background, like even in the shop.
Oh God, yeah.
Every kit was like perfectly lined up, and the packaging was actual packaging. The little clippers, the snips that the kid has, that Sei has in his room, and all that attention to detail, and then all the kind of like Gundam lore and Easter egg stuff from out the many franchises and series that came from that. They're all kind of like seeded in throughout this series, and I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was cool. I did send Sean when I was in Japan. I would have really killed to have the clipper thing as a teen building models, because I used like an X-Acto knife, and so many times I would end up like overly chopping the part off of the tree and just crying out.
I use cat nail clippers because I had them on hand, and then I use human nail clippers to like trim the little nubs and stuff off. And then I know people use X-Acto knives mostly for like decals, so like you can shave stuff, but then use the little point for decals because they are way too small for my fat old man fingers anymore. It's like it's so difficult to do that stuff. It's
As
a young
all of
man's
us just
game.
present our like
We're just
monkey mitts, and we're
A
just
new
like,
segment
we're
called
not gonna
Manual
do this.
Dexterity.
Yeah, it's a young man's game. Gunpla.
Anything else about the good that we liked about it? I know that we talked a lot about it, because I want to kind of use Charlie's idea about what we have for animation, not as a bad, but just maybe kind of as a segue, because I know that he mentioned that, yeah, there is a little bit of a Digimon kind of style to this, but then you look at the space battles and you look at the Gunpla, and it is very Gundam Wing, sort of the androgynous, character seated in the cockpit and trying to figure out kind of, what they're responsible for. And are they or are they not going to insult a girl at high school who asked them to come to a party? I don't know. Looking at you, Wing. Figure it out.
I will say, as far as like the relationships in Wing, these relationships are a lot more wholesome. They're a lot more like pared down and very kind of basic. So I like the friendship, the kind of rivalries, the friendly rivalries. And then like Sean mentioned earlier, the family support is really nice too. So, and then there's also the sort of like child aspiring to be like the father, following the father's footsteps kind of thing too. So there's a lot of nice, just really wholesome relationships going on here too, which is a nice change from most of the Gundam universe.
Absolutely.
Where everybody's trying to kill each other or usurp each other. Yeah.
Or have daddy problems.
Yeah.
Right. Man. Well, let's talk a little bit about the bad for this first episode. Not necessarily bad, but just things that didn't hit or resonate with us. And so, Charlie, I'd love for you to kind of kick off. What didn't work for you for GBF?
Sure. I mean, I think, to a certain extent, almost all shows in modern era from probably 80s onward are toy selling vehicles, but like, this one is much more overtly that. Which,
got money, kid?
Yeah, you might as well put the cost in yen for each kit or something. The other thing that I thought was both funny, and so I mean it's like bad funny, but when they do the first battle arena and it's like these like I think they're trying to riff on the Minovsky particles from the original Gundam, but they're like the blah blah particles. They're just like shooting up in the room. Like, I don't know, shouldn't you kids be wearing like some protective gear? I'm worried that everyone's gonna walk out of here with like low grade cancer or something.
And they may have, but they also get a Gunpla kit. So
yeah, which is
win-win,
fine.
really.
I mean, it really just kind of depends.
Yeah.
What do you want out of this? Kind of, what's the direction you want to go in? What do you value in this Gundam universe?
It's a BOGO. Yeah.
No, don't buy one, get one. This is a bad thing to BOGO, Dave.
The kids are fine. I mean, they ran for 50 plus episodes. I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah.
I will say though, like, if you're looking for a serious Gundam show, this is not it. This is closer to like a G Gundam or something like an alt universe kind of thing. Where if you're looking for that like space drama, this ain't it. It's fun. It's definitely more for kids, and it's definitely meant to sell toys and to make people like me be like, I should own a Gundam store. I should 100% own a Gundam hobby shop and never make any money from it.
Could this be Muppets to Muppet Babies? Could this be Gundam to Gundam Babies?
Well, I mean, they already have SD, which
okay.
a lot of people really like. It's not really Gundam Babies, but, the super deformed chibi style stuff.
I just want...
You just want Gundam Babies?
I just want somebody to sing Gundam Babies in the Muppet Babies theme style.
You can, off stream. Sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, to yourself.
I'm not gonna butcher that
no one
for
around.
anybody else.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, don't worry.
What about you, Sean, though? What didn't work for you, other than the not having a Muppet Babies theme song?
I mentioned a little bit about the Gunpla battles and not loving the name Gunpla. And if you don't like hearing Gunpla, they're going to say it a trillion times during this show. So buckle up. It's not as that the branding was so bad. The thing that I almost really have an issue with is that, say, our main character, our protagonist in this, works at a hobby shop with his mother that sells Gunpla kits, but yet he is struggling to figure out how to pilot and navigate these things. Dude, you have home field advantage, bro. What are you doing, Say? I know you might be working. I get it. But close that shop down at some point, a little later in the evening. You get some Gunpla, you get some time in there. You log a couple hours, you improve a little bit. Like Charlie said, I want to see that progression, of you kind of like hitting the controls and figuring it out.
See, but why could we have a story about a character actually putting in hard work and training to get better when you could just have like a magical space boy come in and just do it for you?
It's a wishing gem, Dave.
I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, I thought he was hallucinating.
Man... Go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, I thought he was hallucinating that other character.
At first, yeah, until the other characters started to like mention him, but then the kid also just like just teleports out at one point too. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. Yeah. It also Reggie, is it Reggie? I'm just gonna call him Reggie.
I've been saying Ray J. I know it's not Ray J, but I like the idea.
Basically.
And it made Charlie laugh too, so we're there.
I might stick with Reggie. I don't like this character for a lot of reasons.
Because he's a ginger. I get it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it goes without saying, but I will say it. No, they're just it's a tropey character. They kind of do the annoying kind of naivete, but then also don't care. They're very aloof, but then they're kind of chaotic at the same time, and they come in when you need them. But then if you actually ask them to do something, they're like, nah, not interested. So they're just kind of, I don't know. That's an annoying character to me, and I don't like the idea that like, I'll talk about this more in the LOL, but I don't like the idea that this character comes in as a partner, and our character Say doesn't really have to do much, at least in the early going. Like, to Sean's point, I would have preferred to see that, like, actual, like, hard work and dedication and stuff, or just have a magic boy come in, help you out. Either one's fine.
Magic boy.
Magic boy.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't take that jump to get into the theme song. Is that not under your bad section?
No, I mean, it really should have been kind of under the LOL, and I'll talk about it. I mean, I did enjoy it, ultimately.
Mine bounced between the good and the bad, to be honest.
I think my final part for the bad is that, in watching and doing some research for this episode, I messaged Charlie and I said, hey, could you give me the breakdown of Universal Century and all the other like Gundam Wing style stuff? And I was like, there's 2 timelines, right? And he's like, no, dog, there's like more than 2.
Yeah.
And this is what's challenging, is that I'm trying to figure out when this is. It's weird because this show is almost a meta commentary on all of the other timelines that are included, that are in this. And so Gundams aren't real things. There is no space war. None of this is actually happening.
As far as
they're just watching the anime like we would watch the anime, but they have this bonus of going like full big Kaiba energy and entering into a battle tournament where suddenly these things materialize in a real sense and we have to fight one.
Oh, well, the thing is, the only other thing, though, is Mr. Ral is like, is he a new type? Which is sort of the psychic, but also
it's
like
a psycho frame. Suit.
Yeah,
He
makes
just
you
pops in there and goes
flip
nuts.
out aspect of the originals, where it's like they're just playing extremely fast and loose with like a toolbox of elements of these other shows, which I do think works. It's just more like funny that like they're going to choose that as the fantastical element in an otherwise relatively grounded show.
Sean, did you watch the second episode at all? I can't remember if you did or not.
A little bit of it, yeah.
So did you get to the point where they essentially introduced this franchise's Kaiba? Yuki, the school president, the class president?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
I
yeah,
did get
like
to that.
super rich, popular, attractive kid who goes completely psychotic when it comes to actually like Gunpla battle system stuff. So
Cool.
That was an interesting character addition, but I'll save that for the recommendation. Yeah.
I'll say I even got a little bit weirded out when they said new type because I didn't know that a new type is part of that toolbox, Charlie, that you mentioned. I always thought new type was the monthly magazine from Japan talking about anime. And so I thought, wait, is he a magazine? I'm very wrong in terms of what's there. So admit it. I'm incorrect a lot.
Everybody who's listening and is real mad about it right now, send all your thoughts to Charlie about how Sean doesn't know anything about new
Send me
types.
your gifs of various Gundam pilots having a new type freak out throughout the franchises. That I would actually
quite a
really
few.
enjoy.
There
Yeah,
are quite a
at
few.
Sweaty in the City on Twitter. Just
Perfect.
get at him right now.
Get at me, dude.
Let's move over and let's talk about some of the LOLs. Some of
Can
the
I
things
pop
that,
in real quick for one thing? Then
yeah.
just
You got a final one?
I got one more for the bad. Just the weight of the actual like Gundams themselves. So sometimes in the battles they get a little floaty. They get a little too fast for their size. This just goes back to the idea that like don't expect like full on realistic, even like Pacific Rim 1 level kind of like heft and fighting. Think Pacific Rim 2, where they just like throw physics out the window and it's just a little
there's-
more cartoonish. Yeah.
Pretty much no gravity.
Nah. In space, sure, whatever, that's fine. But when they do like ground-based battles and it's still kind of like they mess with it a little bit. It's better than Pacific Rim 2, but it's not quite the heft and gravity and weight that you're sometimes used to from the better Gundam series. That's all. Just a minor thing.
Yeah. Oh, good point, Dave. Thank you.
Is it?
Could be. Because we're about to get into the LOLs where we
my
can
favorite.
make up for everything.
Nice.
So let's get into these things that we found funny, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Charlie, kick us off. What did you find funny about GBF?
Well, we already kind of talked about the meta commentary, but I like, and it gave me more of a chuckle, not like I was mocking the show, but I enjoyed it when, you know, the little kid comes into the store with his dad and he's like, oh, what's that one? And he's like, oh, it's Gundam Wing. Like it turns into a jet. And I was like, oh yeah, man, that is incredibly cool. I do think from a like business plan perspective, obviously I love the store, but it doesn't really seem like they get a ton of foot traffic.
I'd be in there every day. I'd be like raw.
Yeah, me too. I would just be clearly they depend on like a loyal following of regulars because no one is going like this would be in Matsudo where I was staying when I was in Japan last, probably further out.
I hope they have like a robust online ordering and distribution system. to
Yeah, I
keep
would hope
alive.
for that. Maybe some good like word of mouth or referral
Yeah.
discounts because otherwise I really worry about the long-term stability of this business enterprise.
I love that you watch this and you think to yourself, I got to write them a better business plan because
They need it.
they are
They
going to
really do.
goof this up. And I care way too much about this franchise to let that family go down the tubes.
To be fair, even like the 2 episodes that I watched, there are at least 6 times that the various characters mentioned like, there's not really anybody in this store. Like the store's pretty empty all of the time. So it's not, I mean, Charlie's got a good point. They're paying attention to it too. I'm hoping by like episode 50, it's like there's a line out the door.
Mom, do we really need to continue this QuickBooks subscription based on the amount of business we're getting? It's not really worth it.
It's not really worth it, Mom. The expense is killing us.
Hey, Mom, I've just been uploading a lot of these models to Instagram. I'm putting them in the stories. If you could kind of help me out, we just really need to go cross-platform with this. If you could kind of discover and figure out how to use Reddit, because most people aren't going to do that, it would really be helpful for us in general.
I
She's
think
like,
Mom would do pretty good
"No."
on Reddit.
You think?
She should start her OnlyFans site. Anyway.
Yeah.
There we go.
Can I tell you something that
that's the tweet? Yeah,
made me
what's
laugh
up?
every time I heard it. So I love the Gundam like battle system, but they do this thing where now again I watched the original Japanese dialogue subtitled. They do this thing where the instructions for the battle system are in English.
Right,
So
I noticed that.
Right.
I love it because they'll just be like, so they'll you put your Gundam in, you select a random field or whatever, like in Mortal Kombat, you select whatever arena you happen to be in. One of them was Field 2, Dessert. And that just killed me.
Yep.
The other parts, when they say battle start or battle ended, it sounds like bottle. So I don't know why bottle start just sounded pretty funny to me. But I like those little just like, not quite there English phrases. Crack me up.
I will say I really liked the fact that when you're introduced to Reggie, he's, I guess, climbing tall buildings.
Yeah, just up
and
on
just
construction
chilling.
scaffolding. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? There is a security officer who says, hey, you got to get out of here. You can't be up here. It's restricted. And Reggie just goes, hey, old man. And the old man responds back just going, I'm 25.
Yeah. Weird.
I don't know why that made me laugh so hard.
I gotta say, one of the funniest things with Reiji was, again, I don't really like the character, but I love that he pops in to help, say, win that first battle against Sasaki, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And then when they win, now let's keep this in mind, it's 2-on-1. There's two people battling against one. I don't know what the rules are to their battle system or whatever, but when they win, inevitably, the adults in the room, including one who's like a self-professed like expert and judge who's like refereeing this thing, they're both like, great job, kids. You really wiped the floor with that other kid. I'm like, is that something that you're supposed to praise when you're like ganging up on another kid? It's a 2-on-1 situation and you're praising them for winning. Like, I don't know that that's 100% the lesson here.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about Pulaski Particles real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about Pulaski Particles.
Charlie mentioned them earlier. I just thought they were hilarious because, yeah, it plays on the very silly Minovsky particles, which they've actually gone into, like, ridiculous, like, physics equation detail to try to, like, legitimize the existence of Minovsky particles, and I don't know why they put that much effort into it. So the fact that Rawl explains Pulaski particles interact with the Gunpla plastic to make them, like, animated and come to life in these battle systems was just so over the top to be pretty funny.
And then that sounds even more harmful to human beings.
It sounds awful. It's like nanoplastic in our oceans, except it's like in your lungs now. Congratulations on your victory, champ. You've got nanoparticle plastic in your lungs.
I think two final things from me.
Yep.
One was an LOL, and the other was a little fun Easter egg from a video game that I've played before. Outside of the hobby shop, when he's kind of closing up shop one night, there's a couple shots that they have where it looks like there is a vending machine that is selling the slime character from Dragon Warrior. Love me some Dragon Warrior. Love me some slime. Made me laugh really hard. I was like, oh, look at that. That's so cool. So little Easter egg caveat for me, that was there. So super fun. Finally, let's talk about cleanliness. What is up with this duster that they are using in the shop where it's a piece of like string or paper on the end of a stick, and we just have Say just kind of hitting model boxes with it every once in a while? I'm sure that that's a real thing.
I don't know.
I guarantee it. It just made me laugh because there were moments where I thought about any model or card or comic book shop that I went to as a kid. Yes, probably 100% need to be dusted and checked for roaches and other creatures that were in there. In this case, though, in a model shop, I have to think these are rather delicate models, and he is just bonking everything that is in there. And there's a part of me that like I puckered real hard because I thought to myself, he's either going to knock over that bookshelf or he's going to knock over that damn model, and then he's going to have to pay for it. And what's his allowance like? And do I need to help Charlie with that business plan? That's what's on my brain right now, which is not what I want to think about when I'm watching Gundam Build Fighters.
It's a good thing to have on your mind as you head into recommendations, though, because it really does restructure your perspective of this show.
how I restructure and how I refocus everything. That being said, any final LOLs that we want to talk about before we get into recommendations?
Just a mini rap and the theme song.
How are you feeling about this mini rap and this theme song?
I can take it or leave it. It just made me chuckle. The theme song wasn't super catchy, but I think it's one of those things where if I sat there for 50 episodes and listened to it every single time, it'd be one of my favorite songs ever.
Okay.
Just because it drills it into your mind. But yeah, it was kind of forgettable.
It was interesting. There's a couple lines that, obviously as we're watching it and it's subtitled, it was saying, I think the idea or the line was, I don't feel like I have any good skills. And I sat there and went,
lines are good.
I just went, oh my God.
Some real existential dread.
Yeah, it really, it has a light uplifting note, but it really kind of hammers in the idea of like, I don't know that I have self-worth, but if I try real hard, I'll get self-worth. And I thought,
also says everything is going to be okay.
And then there's a rap portion for like 3 lines, which I actually enjoyed.
Sure.
Yeah, not bad. All right. So that is our thoughts about episode 1 of Gundam Build Fighters. So thank you, Jesse, for calling in and telling us that we need to watch this show. So let's get to our recommendations about this. Long time or first time listeners, let's explain our recommendation. We could recommend a cartoon and we could say why we think you should invest the time to watch some more of this. If we don't recommend something, we can tell you why, and we can also give you a referral to watch another cartoon that's sort of in the same vein that you might really enjoy. If we don't recommend something, we can go down one step further and we can say we are going to dunk this cartoon, we are going to dip it. And that means that cartoon is erased from the annals of cartoon history and we never talk about it. Yes, the dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We're just getting rid of that cartoon. If you think, wow, sounds like the dip doesn't happen very often, guess what? It does now because we dunked a cartoon the other week. And
wow.
We're still having fun with it. So
I don't remember it, but it deserved it.
Yeah, it definitely did. Don't worry about it. We're doing fine. So for today, Charlie, thoughts, feelings, where do you stand on Gundam Build Fighters?
So I think I give it a recommend. It's definitely more kid to young teen oriented. So I think like, I'm not a parent, but if I knew somebody who had a kid who was like into other sort of like kiddie anime stuff, but they were Gundam-Curious, I'd be like, start them off here. So it's fun that way. Or for adults who are like also into the model building habit, which I think there's probably a good crossover. I mean, certainly we've explored it between the three of us. I think it's fun. It's pretty lighthearted. And so I think that there's always a place for that kind of entertainment. So recommend.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. And you know what? Adults can be Gundam-Curious as well. There's nothing preventing them. Anybody can be Gundam-Curious at any point in time in their life.
I'm going to put that on my Twitter profile now.
Gundam
Just in case everybody wants to know.
Yep. Love it. Dave, where are you sitting for Gundam Build Fighters?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to like this one because it's not, like I said, like kind of one of the hardcore, like space drama Gundam things, but it was actually really cute and really fun. And it was definitely the Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon approach to the Gundam world. And it was a lot of fun for model builders, for just fans to see those kind of Easter eggs. If you're not taking it too seriously and can appreciate the humor and kind of the lightness and the younger skewing kind of like focus for it, it's fun. I would say recommend it, but watch those first 2 episodes. You'll get an idea of the world, the stakes, the characters, and kind of like you can see where the arc's going to go from there. So the first 2 episodes, if you're in, and check it out. How about you, Sean?
Love it. I am going to be a recommend as well. So we're
Cool.
3 for 3. I'll say this. The pacing on this show is great. Why would I say that? Start off with a space operatic battle. We then have Sei in his first battle where he actually loses and learns a little bit of a lesson. And then at the end of the episode, we finally get a chance to see him succeed. All of that happens in episode 1. So you get nice pacing. You get a nice exposure to everything that's taking place and hints at a little bit of the lore that they can kind of seed throughout that will hopefully have some resolution over the 50 episodes and the 2 seasons that they have for it. So I didn't think I was going to like this either. But Jesse, guess what?
Good job,
really
Jesse.
like this. This was good. Appreciate this recommendation. Again, if you want to make a recommendation, you can go online. You can call us, Cartoon Lawyers. I know that you're listening right now, and we will review all of them. And we have a couple more. We have a couple more in queue, so we can't wait to get to them. So that is it. Jesse, thank you for Gundam Build Fighters. Appreciate it. So we want to thank Charlie for coming on the show. As always, Charlie, what do you have to plug, buddy? So thanks.
You can always just follow me on Sweaty in the city on Twitter. Please do at me, bro. Since COVID times, lonely. And you can check out my painting. I'm at Charlie Visconage on Instagram. Thank you guys again for having me. Always love being on the show.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it, buddy.
We're going to get together as soon as COVID's done, and we're going to build some Gundams.
Yeah.
And get
Now you're
real
talking.
Gundam
Full size,
Curious.
life size. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you heard him on this episode, our friend Bobby Anthem. You can hear him on his paranormal podcast, Inhuman Experience, with his co-host Bobby Blades. You can find them on Twitter at IEXP_podcast. And Bobby has a solo show, In Search of My Lost Soul, which is in the same exact stream. You can find these anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere else. So definitely check them out. Dave, what do you got going on?
Same old stuff, bud. You can find me over at collider.com. Check me out on Twitter at DrClawMD, or pick up The Science of Breaking Bad from MIT Press wherever books are sold. What about you, bud?
Man, I typically do live improv comedy with a group that's called Knox when we're not in a pandemic, but we are also streaming shows online, so you can check that out. You can find tickets and times witdc.org. Watch me from the comfort of your couch. I have another comedy podcast that is called The Bureau, which answers the question, what would 4 people who work for the FBI recording a podcast in a break room sound like? Do this with some of our notable guests that we've had on this show previously, Isabel Galbraith, as well as also Jamal Newman. You can check that out anywhere that you listen to podcasts, on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis. So make sure you at me there as well. Want to support this show? Jump on over to our Patreon. We really appreciate it. Also, just tell a friend. Why? Because I don't understand how Apple reviews work on iTunes, and I don't care, and I'm old, and I don't want to figure it out. That felt very, very personal to me
That was
suddenly.
real from the
Yikes. Yeah.
Yep.
Just a deep sigh.
But we're all
Wanna talk-
just nodding in agreement. Like
yeah,
that.
just figure it out, Apple. Want to talk to us on Twitter? Slide into our DMs at Morning Tunes. Remember, morning with you. Find us and check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Saturday Morning Cartoons. Drop us an old-fashioned email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. You can find all these links in our link tree for all of our social media sites. And as always, you can listen to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere fine podcasts are sold. Thank you again, Charlie, for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Dave,
Thanks, guys.
for the both of you for jumping back into this Gundam pilot and getting exposed to these weird particles. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot.
See you, new types.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.